To finish off this section of the course, I want to discuss these two ideas of name and then the string main. So an often confusing part of Python is when you start looking at larger .py scripts that you haven't written yourself, you often see at the very bottom this mysterious line of code that says if underscore underscore name underscore underscore is equal to the string underscore underscore main underscore underscore colon, and then there's a block of code to be executed. So sometimes the whole idea behind that line of code is that when you're importing from a module, you would actually like to know whether a module's function is being used as an import or if you're using the original .py file of that module. So what we're going to do is explore all of this a little bit more, but make sure to check the full explanatory text file that has a written explanation of everything we're going to cover here. What we're going to do basically is just create two simple .py scripts and try to show you the idea behind that if name is equal to main block of code that is usually at the end of larger .py script files. Let's get started. Okay, let's begin by actually creating two new files. We'll create them at my desktop. I will say for this first file, save as, and I'm going to save this as 1.py. So this one is 1.py. Then I'll create a new file, and I'm going to save this one as 2.py. 2.py, again at my desktop, so we'll label this one 2.py. So make sure you have those saved. So let's think about what actually happens when you call a Python script at your command line. You go to your command line and you type python space the name of your script .py. So what's actually happening when you call python myscript.py, all of the code that's at indentation level 0, essentially something like this, is going to get run. So that means any code that's at indentation level 0 is going to get run, and that would mean that your functions, which are automatically usually going to be defined at indentation level 0, and your classes, also at indentation level 0, are all going to be defined. So unlike other languages, in Python, there's no main function that you call somewhere at the top of your script that gets run automatically. Instead, what happens is, just implicitly, all the code at this indentation level 0 gets run when you call the script file. And you probably have an intuition of that by now, since we've been working through that strategy the entire first half of the course. Now, in Python, there is actually a built-in variable called name. So just like there's built-in functions, this is a built-in variable. And it's quite obvious that it's built in because we have two sets of double underscores in the beginning and in the back of it. So that would allow you to have to really try to overwrite it by accident. So what happens is this variable name gets assigned a string depending on how you're running the actual script. And if you run the script directly, so if I went to the command line and I wrote out python space 1.py, what Python is going to do, it's going to assign this built-in variable called name to be equal to underscore underscore main. So Python does this in the background. Well, it really does this. It assigns this string to the name variable when you run it directly. And that allows you to have an if block to check if they're equal to each other. So often what you do is something like this. You say if name is equal to main, and then you can do something because you know that this particular .py file is being run directly. And if you ever run something directly of Python, you know this case happens to be true. So what happens is often people will just, at the very bottom of their code, they'll say if name is equal to main, and then they say kind of run a bunch of functions that they defined here. So at top, they do a bunch of function definitions. So function number 1, function number 2, so on and so on. So you can imagine hundreds of lines of function definitions or classes. And then all the way at the bottom, they actually organize their code on what they actually want to execute. And they know that they want to execute it because they say, if this built-in variable called name happens to be equal to the string main, then I know I'm running this .py file directly. So we're going to explore this whole idea a little further. And to do that, we're going to do the following. In 1.py, so let's go back here. This is 1.py. I will write out the following code. I will say def, create a function, and this function is going to be very simple. It will say func in 1.py. So when you call that function, it says func in 1.py. It's just printing that out. And then what I'm also going to do here is at an indentation level of 0, so outside of this function, I will say top level in 1.py. So now I have a function definition as well as a global print statement top level in 1.py. Then at the bottom of this, I will say if, and you'll notice that Sublime Text Editor will actually autocomplete this for you. If name is equal to main, I'm going to delete this. So I have an if block of code here. So if name is equal to main, then I know I'm running this directly. So I will say 1.py is being run directly. And then I'm actually going to line up an else block with this if statement. You don't see this that often. You usually just see if and then you execute all your code. But just to make it clear how this variable is working, we'll also add in an else there. We'll say else print 1.py has been imported. So I'm going to save that, and let's take a look at what happens. I define this function, I print out this statement whenever you call 1.py, and then depending if 1.py is the main script, meaning I'm calling 1.py directly at the command line, I will print this out. Else, that means the variable name was not set to main, and I will print this out. 1.py has been imported. So now let's work with our second file, 2.py. What we'll do here is say import 1, and I will print out at the very top level. Let's print out something like top level in 2.py. And since I just imported 1, let's execute the function that's from 1. We'll say 1.func. And here we're going to have an if statement. We'll autocomplete this. If name is equal to main, I will print 2.py is being run directly. Else print 2.py has been imported. So let's save the changes in both of these and then open up our command line. All right, so the first thing we're going to do at our command line is actually run 1.py directly. So we run this and we notice what happens. We get that print statement, top level in 1.py, and then we see from that if name is equal to main, 1.py is being run directly. So we can see here that that built-in variable underscore underscore name underscore underscore has been assigned that main string. So Python then knows, and the entire script can know, that 1.py has been called directly. But now let's check out Python 2.py. So now when I run this, notice what happens. I get back top level in 1.py, but now 1.py, its built-in variable of name has not been set to main because it's been imported. So now we get back 1.py has been imported. And then I get top level in 2.py, func in 1.py, and then 2.py is being run directly. So that built-in variable actually allows you to see whether something is being imported or run directly. So that's the idea and concept behind the variable name, and checking if it's equal to main. Typically, however, what you see is people, they don't really do it the way we've done here where they check is something being run directly or not. Instead, if we come back to Sublime Text Editor, what they do is instead of having an else statement here, since they just say if name is equal to main, this is the same thing as saying run the script, right? Because we already know that if this happens to be the case, then someone is running 1.py script directly. So what they do is they define a bunch of functions up here or define their classes. So here's another function, pass. You write some other function, function2, save, and then down here at the bottom, what you end up doing is you just call your functions. So you'll say, okay, execute function2, then execute function1, and then maybe you have a little bit of logic here. But the main idea is that this is more for code organization. You have all your functions and classes defined up here, and then your logic, where you actually execute things, are defined here at the bottom. And this is a really common structure you will see for larger .py scripts, especially when you begin to use modules and packages. All right, that's the basics of this line, if name is equal to main. Definitely check out the explanation.txt file that goes along with this lecture, and if you have any questions, feel free to post to the Q&A forums. I'll see you at the next lecture.